Yeah, definitely. I think the sector isn't as joined as up as it could be. Thinking of things like referencing needs to be much more robust and realistic. I think it's very difficult for a tenant who's perhaps got other debts to talk to a future landlord about those. The tenant might feel that it might bar them from securing the property that they want. So that process definitely needs tightening up. I think early communication between organisations is really important as well. Rather than a two-way conversation between the tenant and the new landlord, it's involving all three, preferably around the same table or virtually, whatever that would look like. So sign up using both landlords and getting them involved at that stage would certainly make a lot of sense. I think measures such as a conditional offer that's based on a closing balance is really important. What can happen is a reference is sought when there's no debt, and then that debt accumulates after the reference and a new property has been secured. So that would encourage tenants to keep their rent clear and free of any debt. I think providers might want to consider things like reciprocal debt arrangements, where if you've got a lot of tenants who came from another landlord in your locality and vice versa, you perhaps take the responsibility from that landlord in managing that debt on their behalf. That can make an awful lot of sense as well. I think things like the responsibility for claiming benefits, that needs to come into conversation much earlier. The sorts of benefits you can claim when you've got two properties, but also the role that is expected of a tenant in that regard, I think is really, really important. I think when it comes to moving, it's costly for any of us to think about moving home. If you're a tenant in a social let property, you might have a very low or limited income, and as a result of that, finding the money to hire a removal van or furnish a new home is going to be a challenge. But I think it's important that landlords are upfront when they have those conversations with tenants, that there is a cost. How are you going to meet that cost and what it looks like? Because it's inevitable, and it's important that it's had. I think one of the key things for me is rent in advance. I think asking for rent in advance makes an awful lot of sense. It's commitment from the tenant. It also helps you understand and be aware if there's any financial issues. But what you can do is inadvertently pass a problem onto a previous landlord by moving that tenant with that debt because they've saved up for the new property rather than paid the former tenant arrears. So asking a tenant, where is that coming from, is a really important question. And again, doing that in a spirit of openness and honesty is important too. I think the final one would be thinking about flexible notice terms. 4 weeks doesn't work for everyone. The new landlord's trying to get the tenant in as quickly as possible. They're looking at the relet times. The old landlord's asking you to wait 4 weeks. It's obvious there's going to be a bit of a pinch point there when it comes on pressure. So thinking a bit more flexibly about those things, I think they're all options for landlords to start to look at.